Welcome, everybody. We are here in Jerusalem, and this is exciting. I have two guests with me today, my co-hosts, and you've seen them both before. With me today is Avi Lipkin and Roddey Harel from right here in the old city of Jerusalem, a very quiet place. It's hard to find a quiet place in the old city, isn't it?
This is one of the nicest places that I can think of, and I know Jerusalem pretty well.
It is. Roddey,
good morning.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Are you ready to roll?
Let's roll.
Do we have a few things to talk about? Okay, let's just dive right into it. I'm going to throw it out here. So we have the hostages, the living hostages have been released. So we're now a couple of weeks beyond that. But there's a lot of questions on how things are moving forward. What would you say, Avi, is the feeling of the average Jewish Israeli right now?
Well, I think especially those who watch Channel 14, which is what we do, which is the nationalist and religious channel, channels 11, 12, 13, are more to the left. 15 is to the left, but 14, those of us who watch the nationalist station and we listen to what we consider the correct evaluation of the situation, all the others are very negative. All the other TV stations are and they cause a lot of division in the Israeli population. It's kind of like in the States, if you have all these other stations that attack Trump all the time, and then all of a sudden you have Fox News, which sometimes might slightly attack Trump, but normally people like us watch Fox News or OAN, or the American national stations. So there is a chronic division in the country, but I would say that 70% of the Jewish people watch 14, if at all. The ultra-Orthodox don't watch TV, but they are in agreement because of the Bible with the national religious viewpoint. I would say that the majority of people are happy with the situation now. We got our live hostages back. We got some of our dead hostages back. We're waiting for the rest. President Trump is constantly saying, if you don't give us all of these in 72 hours, all hell is going to break loose, or the gates of hell are going to break loose. Of course, Israel is the gates of hell. And then 72 hours go by, and another 72 hours go by, and Hamas is basically stalling for time. But the good news is we got whatever we got back. We do still control 53% of Gaza. We're still in Gaza. And Trump knows it, and we know it, that the moment he gives the orders, Hamas is finished in 48 hours, all of Hamas. Israel goes in with its army and cleans up. But, as you know, and as I don't have to tell you, America is very, very much dependent on money coming into the country to save the American economy from collapse. Really, because of Biden and the Democrats and Obama, all these crazy, crazy spendings on totally irrational things. We have an election, I'm changing the subject, we have an election in New York City, and Mamdani probably is going to win. Why is he going to win? Because of all the illegals and all the foreigners who have come into New York City, and New York City has become a third world country. And so just as you guys pray for us here in Israel, let me tell you, we are praying for you in America, because the way New York goes, America goes. So at this point, we're looking up. Yeah. And we pray for President Trump. We pray for Netanyahu. And it's interesting, in Argentina, you have this guy called Milei, who is like, he's MAGA, make Argentina great again. And he's the first libertarian president, and he's fixing Argentina. Listen, my family's from Argentina. It is one of the most corrupt countries in history. It's one of the richest countries that became one of the poorest countries because of the socialist, Peronist ideologies. And so, we're praying for Argentina. And there are a lot of changes taking place. Bolivia just now got a pro-Israel conservative president, Bolivia. Uruguay is pro-Israel. Panama is pro-Israel. And I think we're going to see a U.S. military involvement in Venezuela, not because of the drugs. Venezuela, with the backing of Iran, China, and Russia are going to invade Guyana. And because Guyana is totally open to invasion, the country has rare earth materials, and it's basically an extension of the Monroe Doctrine. And I'm a total supporter of the Monroe Doctrine. The U.S. has to be the world leader, or it's not going to be anything.
Wow. There's a lot that you just said there. I'm going to have you jump in here a second, but I want to just bring this up. Look at Mom Donnie. One of the problems is there's a lot of Jews in America, even in New York City, that are supporting him. And then we have Bernie Sanders. We have some of the people in Congress and Senate that are Jewish that are supporting him. That's not good. And then, I can't help but think when you go back into the history of Israel, the 12 tribes of Jacob have always had a problem getting along.
Right.
Joseph is sold into slavery by his brothers. You had the split of the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. The day is coming when they're all going to be united. But here, you still have political issues, internal issues here in Israel, which we've talked about before. But Roddey, Avi said a whole lot there, which I'm really interested in everything you said about South America, too. I want to get into that. But let's go here, and then I want to come back to this.
To Gaza for a moment. Early in the morning, the wee hours in the morning, Trump had set a 48-hour time period for the Hamas to fulfill the return of our dead hostages. And so what evidently the IDF has on film from a drone or from a stationary point of view, they witness Hamas bring a body out, dig a hole, cover it up, go back in, then the Red Cross shows up and they go in and remove the body. So the whole thing was staged, it was choreographed. These timetables that he sets and then we don't follow through with the threat that comes through only gives them hope. It gives them hope, it gives them more time to rebuild, to rearm. And then the question is going to become, how many civilians are they going to get into the area? Are we, Israel, going to actually be allowed to go in and take care of them within 48 hours, Avi? I mean, is that a realistic time frame? And the more time that goes by, the more difficult these things are going to be. We're still at war, and we have things happening on the Lebanon border. We were talking with Mika about these things. They're fighting up there still. So they're very concerning, and because we're in a position now to potentially regrowth. We see the people coming here to visit us in Israel. We see the buses, the tourism. It's going to be very interesting to watch and listen to the experts like Avi to give us their opinions.
Also, by the way, they returned the body last night, but they didn't return. They gave us a body, which was not one of our people. So we are still at 13.
Along with the one that was choreographed. Did you read about that this morning?
The choreographed, no, but what we got was not one of the remaining Israeli dead hostages.
And I suppose the point about the choreographed one is that they know where these bodies are, and they're using it as a stall tactic. Down to the last minute, the 11th hour is when they bring him out there, or the person, whoever's body it is, dig the hole, fill it up, then call the Red Cross to make it look this way. Wow. Yeah, it's appalling to me.
So Israel still has their enemies that they're surrounded by.
Correct.
You still have Iran is still a problem. Where do you see this going with Iran? We know what Trump did with the B-2s, but they're still a problem.
Yes. Well, I think the bottom line about Iran is regime change. And Israel cannot do a regime change in Iran without marching in lockstep with the U.S. government, U.S. Military. And I think one of the great accomplishments of President Trump will be, maybe he should get a Nobel Prize for that, and that is regime change. The Iranian people, I think, are open now to regime change. It's just the devil is so entrenched in the IRGC and the top Islamic leadership that the people of Iran are not really capable of rising up. It's the same situation in Nazi Germany. Even to the end of the war, Hitler, committed suicide, and the war continued. And even after the victory in Europe Day in 1945, it was about 2 years till 1947 that you had hardcore SS Gestapo units still fighting Allied troops The war was not over in 45, it was over in 47. And I think what the Israeli military and government are realizing is that to completely retire or liquidate Hamas is going to take years. And one of our problems indeed is that the United States, in order to ensure that its economy stays strong, and I'm an Israeli saying this, I can understand why President Trump has to pay some kind of obeisance to Qatar and Saudi and the Emirates. And there are other things that are taking place, including a civil war now in Sudan. And the Iranians, the Houthis in Yemen, they're going across the water to Sudan. And they're massacring, really, genocide of the people of Sudan. Nobody says a word. It's only when the Jews kill a few tens of thousands of terrorists,
terrorists. So I was watching that with Sudan, what's going on there. In fact, it was just this morning I was reading about that. These are enormous problems. Genocide. So you're talking, so what we have now is what's going on in South America,
right.
Venezuela,
right.
what's going on in parts of Africa.
Right.
We have everything surrounding Israel.
Right.
There's a lot of wars and rumors of wars that are taking place. Okay, then we throw in here, I want to come back to Qatar. So Qatar, and you mentioned both Saudi Arabia and Qatar, but are they at the same level with their involvement with the terrorist groups?
Firstly, the Qataris are very proactive in supporting the terrorist group.
Yeah, so Hamas and even the protests on the university campuses in America.
The Saudis are different. The Saudis want stability. The Saudis want the Belt Silk Road, like the Chinese have more to the north, to have this road from India going through Qatar or going through Bahrain and then Saudi Arabia and then Israel and then on to Europe. So all of these things are very interesting for Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia does not like the Muslim Brotherhood, even though they're Muslim, devout Muslims, but they don't like the political aspect of the Muslim Brotherhood.
So the Muslim Brotherhood, are they Sunni or Shiite?
Everything is Sunni.
Everything is
and
Sunni.
And Qatar is Sunni.
Okay. And Saudi Arabia is Sunni, yet you have Iran, which is Shia.
Right.
So, Roddey, I can tell you want to say something there.
Just a little bit back to Iran. I believe that the Iranian people do want to rebel and revolt from within. But as Avi was saying, the IRGC is so powerful, it's hard for them. But I did watch a video, and their faces were clear. Large group of young people, including the women. They had their head covering completely off. They were having a party. They were also at the same time making a political statement. So this particular large group of young people were not afraid to make their voices heard. But in my mind, I think they're putting their lives at risk every time they do this. But how long is it going to take for this rebellion and revolt to come from within? Are there things that the rest of the world, America, Israel, other countries can do to put pressure on Iran to help the Iranian people from within? But in the past, Avi will explain this more to us probably. If it wasn't for the internal fighting within Islam itself, there would have been numerous times throughout all of our history for the past 1,600 years that if they would have actually come together, then they would control a lot more than what they do today. It would have been way worse. But just like Israel, though, we're the same way. We always have internal problems. A house divided cannot stand. Yeshua is very clear on this. We see it. Whenever there's unity, God takes action. We see it at Mount Sinai. God says, Moses, they are all of one mind. In the New Testament, in the book of Acts, they were all of one accord. When people of God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and for us through Yeshua, when we are united, God takes action. He can take action anytime he wants to. He doesn't have to do anything. But when we are united, this is when we see him take action.
Yeah. Well, in America right now, we can see there's major issues because America is divided. Sticking with Iran for just a second, I had an opportunity to interview someone recently. He's Persian Jew, and his family lived in Persia 2,600 years ago. It was really fascinating talking to him. He said they can trace his history back to, I know you know people like this, but I found a very interesting conversation going all the way back to Babylon, being taken to Babylon. At the time of Esther, his family would have been there. And then it wasn't until the whole issue happened with Shah, he was just a little kid at the time, his family escaped from Iran and just relocated. But when you look at the history of Iran, there was such favorable history between Persia and the Jews.
Correct.
Until now. In fact, throughout the history of Iran.
Correct. The Iranian people who you meet outside of Iran say very freely, we were never a problem. We never had a problem with the Jewish people or with Israel. And the problem is, I've heard the word anomaly. That what has happened with Khomeini and Khamenei and all of these fanatic IRGC groups, this is an anomaly in Iranian history. And so, like I said before, if you ask my humble opinion, the United States knows exactly, Israel probably knows exactly where the IRGC bases are, where the top leadership of Iran is. And surgically, you've seen in the last 2 years surgically what Israel has done to the enemy leadership. It'll have to happen again for a popular revolution to rise up and overthrow. I think it's going to happen. It's kind of like, forgive me for it's not a good example, but when a cat sees a mouse, it eats it eventually, but it plays with it first. And so I think what we're going to see after the B-2 bombings of President Trump, I think they're still with their head spinning. The U.S. and Israel are going to have to play a few games with them first. But I predict within our time, within a very short time, the Iranian regime will be overthrown. I don't know if there will be democracy, because democracy is not something you find in the Islamic world, even though the Iranian people are great people. And if the Shah, the son of the Shah comes in, Reza, then I don't know if he will be a democratic person, or the dictatorship will go back to the days of the Shah who was deposed. We are praying for democracy, but my wife Rachel, as you know, who monitored the Arabic language broadcasts, the Arabs are always saying, democracy over our dead bodies. Democracy is Judeo-Christian Western civilization, and democracy, we will not tolerate it. There is no democracy in Islam.
So can I ask him a question?
Sure.
Because everything that you're talking about makes me think of, since the bombings of the nuclear facilities in Iran, since that point in time, we've seen numerous very large explosions, numerous fires set all over the place in Iran. Do you think these are surreptitious actions from Israel, America, both, or do you think, or from within?
Both and others, and from within. Absolutely. No, this is something which is being choreographed, they're getting prepared for it. I think it's also one of the reasons why President Trump is so angry with Hamas, because he wants to get this Hamas-Gaza thing over with so that we can deal with Iran. And you have to remember, dealing with Iran is very important for torpedoing the axis of evil of Russia, China, and North Korea. If we can remove Iran from the axis of evil, we have done a very good job.
Or does this placate Qatar when they take these type of actions?
This is good for Qatar, because Qatar is a money country, and they're trying to take over America. Iran, they are succeeding, by the way. But the problem with what's happening now, Iran, under this present leadership, is not a money country. In other words, they pay for their economy with drugs. I think one of the fears of President Trump and of Israel, I would say not Israel, but President Trump, is if there is a frontal attack on Iran, they will destroy their own gas and oil, which will wreak havoc on the gas and oil business. United States is having its own story with blockading Russia from exporting its oil and gas. So the President of the United States is always aware that there is an overall global economic picture connected to gas and oil. Iran is part of that picture. So I think what the American government is going to do is do everything it can to avoid damage to the gas and oil infrastructure, but yes, take out the IRGC and the Islamic leadership.
Do you think that Trump really understands the mindset, the history, the traditions of the Middle Eastern people?
The answer to that really is no.
Thank you.
No, but he's a businessman, and if his advisors say that there's a problem with the economy, he says, well, I'm a businessman. Yeah, that's right. You know, like if the Islamic world says, how do you destroy America? How do you destroy the great Christian Satan? Well, the approach of Iran and the Russians is you destroy America. The approach of Qatar is, why should we destroy a good thing? Take it over. And so Qatar and Saudi and others, they're using their money and their immigration numbers to make America Muslim. And I think I said on one of our last Zooms that we did, that my wife Rachel picked up broadcasts 30 years ago when she was in the radio monitoring the broadcasts. Even if it takes us 150 years, we will make America Muslim.
Make America Muslim, make Argentina great again. We were watching this time. Let me ask you this before we head to the break. If we go back to the British Mandate, part of the mindset was we're going to create a democracy here in the Mideast, but you have, the entire Mideast is tribal. Is never going to work. You already mentioned that.
Right.
So we see it from the very beginning, the original two-state solution, if we want to go that far back.
Well, you know, I'm a history freak. And when I study the history of Europe, and I see how the Germans, the Nazis, were actually preferred by the Arab world, and the British and the Americans had to find a way to keep them in line, and so that's why 6 million Jews died. Because, you know, let the Jews die, but let us keep control over the Arabs and the Persians. Interesting, nobody talks about it, but in the history of World War II, Russia, Britain, and the United States occupied Iran and divided it up into the three different, groups to make sure it wasn't going to be pro-Nazi. Then after the war was over, everything switched from the Nazi axis to the communist axis. And so the United States was doing everything it can to make sure that Iran would not go. Iranians are friendly with the Russians. And the United States and Britain made sure that Iran would not get too chummy, too close with the Russians. And that's to this day. So I don't think it was a question of bringing democracy. The question was controlling. And I think the West, the Christians, the Christian world, the British, the Americans were very condescending to these Arab tribes. We even had our minister now, Smotrich, Minister of the Economy, Secretary of the Treasury, if you will, and he was saying these Saudis are riding around on their camels. Very offensive, very condescending. But that's the way the leadership of America and Britain were in World War II and after. Let them have their camels, give them the money, from the oil. But 6 million Jews died.
Back to something you said, for me, I see as part of the problem is Trump, America, the West in general, it's a now result. They want something right now, where Islam looks and is willing to wait 100, 150, 200,
1,000 years.
1,000 years.
Yeah.
And when you have these dynamics of one wanting something right now and the other side willing to wait a couple hundred years, you can't really solve any of these issues. And so the advisors to Trump and everyone else, they need to fully understand these things before we're going to solve some very serious problems.
Well, it's confusing to me because I'm not involved in politics. I didn't go to school for these types of things, so you get some of the smartest minds in the world that are working within the administration, and I can see it, you can see it, you know it. I'm thinking, how can they not figure this out? Exactly. I understand Trump's mindset. He is, we're going to get it done. We're going to get it done now. If anybody gets in my way, I'll deal with that. But it's like, how can you not understand this Mideast mindset? Both Israel and the entire Islamic community, all of it.
And if they do understand it, then why don't they work towards that direction?
They would take a
What's
different,
the reason why
right.
they ignore it? I don't have the answers to this.
Follow the money trail.
There you go.
So, okay, that does take us back to Qatar.
Yes.
So, Roddey, let's hear. We have a couple more minutes before we come up on the break.
Okay.
Take us through some things, your thoughts on Qatar, what we're watching with the Trump administration. And I really appreciate what you said. It's like you look at the U.S. economy, there's a problem. But Qatar is playing both sides.
So hopefully Avi will correct me in the things that I get wrong. But Qatar is a very, very tiny, tiny country. What keeps
300,000 population.
And so what keeps them protected from all the other nations around them from taking them out is the U.S. military bases there. In the beginning of our war 2 years ago, if we just said we're going to remove that military base, then everything would have stopped at that point in time. But instead, what happened? Qatar offers an airplane to Trump. Of course, it doesn't go to him personally. It will go to the administration, to the American people to set up a museum in the future. You have Witkoff with $650 million. I don't know what the number was. And even if it was a semi-legitimate business deal, it's the appearance of impropriety. We talked about this the other day. Just in any other profession, the legal field, the accounting field, in the medical field, even the appearance of impropriety, especially on a global scale, you shouldn't be able to do it, and everyone just completely ignores it. And it's something that really just, we see, as you said, we see it, everyone else we know, they see it. It's very frustrating for me. Correct me on all that, Avi.
I have to tell you something. I've never said this before on any kind of TV program or whatever. Once I was flying El Al to New York, and I've flown El Al dozens of times. And but I'm getting older, so I like to sleep on the plane. So I'm sitting there and I'm sleeping. All of a sudden I hear yelling on the El Al plane. 3 or 4 rows in front of me is the door, and that's where everyone is congregating. And they're talking about Islam. So immediately I got up. I had to hear what they're saying. And so there was this guy saying, oh, an ultra-Orthodox Jew with a black hat and the side curls. And he was praising Saudi Arabia. And he said, I work in real estate in Belgium. He lives in Belgium. And I go to Saudi Arabia all the time. Real estate, Saudi Arabia. He's selling properties to the Saudis. And I get good money. And the only little problem is that before they give me the money, they say, now you just must recite, La Allah illa Allah wa Muhammad Rasulullah, which is there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his prophet. And this Jewish guy recited it, and people don't realize when you say there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his prophet, you have just converted to Islam.
Okay, this is, I want to pick it up here in the second half, because we start looking at these business deals. If something like that is happening, even if the person's saying it, saying this is harmless, you've already rejected the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob
Exactly.
at that point.
This is a religious, this is a moral problem.
Yeah, this is a huge problem, because now you've entered into a business deal, and that's your foundation. I don't see how God can honor that. Wow, it's an agreement that's based on lies.
Let me add one more thing, very, very important. And as a Jew, as an observant Jew, as a nationalist Jew, I see things which hurt very much, because I came once from that kind of thinking, where the Jews prefer Islam over Christianity. And I came to the conclusion, Allah is Satan. You know, I have a 3-year jail sentence in Switzerland for saying that. I saved Switzerland from those minarets. I got a 3-year jail sentence, commuted to 10 years. Allah is Satan. The Jews and the Christians have the same God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They have another God. Their God is the moon God, the war God, the sword God. And anybody who says, oh, it's okay if I say there is no God but Allah, but Muhammad is his prophet, you have just stabbed God in the back. Yeah. And so I've been working in Christian churches now for 35 years. And most churches don't want to hear any of this because political correctness. Synagogues will not hear this whatsoever. And you go to any synagogue anywhere in the world, and they still have the mantra of 1492 that we were allies with the Muslims against the Catholics, Ferdinand and Isabella. And let me tell you, I've written a few books, and I talk about the Ferdinand and Isabella were doing the only correct thing that they could do, which was to expel the Muslims and the Jews from Spain, because the Turks were also Muslims, were at the gates of Spain in 1492, ready to reinvade Spain a 4th time. And I talk about the Battle of Lepanto in 1571, where the Catholics totally destroyed the Turkish navy. Nobody knows any of these things. This is a war, a multi-generation, multi-century war between Christianity and Islam. And unfortunately, the history is such that the Jews have always been with the Muslims. And that's why Mamdani is going to win.
Yeah, well, let's pick up here when we come back to the second half. We will be right back.
Imagine being in Israel as the sun is rising over the Sea of Galilee, or walking on the streets of Jerusalem, visiting the city of Nazareth, or having a Bible study in Capernaum at the Apostle Peter's house. Pastor Tom Hughes will be leading a tour to the land of Jesus. We will explore Israel together and bring the Bible to life before your very eyes. We will visit Caesarea by the sea and Joppa, where Jonah caught a boat going in the wrong direction. We'll take a boat ride on the Sea of Galilee, just as Peter did when he walked on water. We will walk on the Mount of Olives and through the Garden of Gethsemane. You will have the opportunity to explore the Temple Mount and visit at the Western Wall and even go underneath the Temple Mount. You'll be able to visit the City of David and Hezekiah's tunnel. And have you ever wanted to float on the Dead Sea or visit the cave where David cut the corner of King Saul's robe? Or perhaps spending a morning at Masada? These are just some of the once-in-a-lifetime experiences you will have when you join us on our Israel trip.
Welcome back to the second half, and I am with Avi Lipkin and Roddey Harel in the old city of Jerusalem. And wow, what a first half, and some of the things we were talking about. Let's pick up from where we left off.
So I was listening to Avi, I'm thinking about the sect of Judaism that does have the mindset that Judaism as a religion is closer to Islam than Christianity. I've had that said to me numerous times in the past, and I know Avi will be able to expand on this. He talked about it a little bit then, but it's something that's always stuck in my head and bothers me, because Judaism and Christianity is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Correct.
And as you were saying just a few moments ago, Allah is the opposite. And here's how we know. Because and especially in the Christian world, we don't die for our God. He saves us, where in Islam it's the other way around. They die to be able to go to their 72 verses.
It's almost like it's like a sacrifice when you look at pagan cultures throughout the Bible. They give their own sons over to their gods, and the same thing is happening with Islam.
That was a form of abortion, actually.
Yes, it was.
The first child would be aborted to please the gods for more children.
I mean, it's upside down. Yes, Avi?
It's completely crazy. I wanted to add another thing also. I don't want to turn this into an infomercial, but I've written 9 books. 2 of them are going to be printed in the States, hopefully in the winter when I come to the States. But my 5th book is a book which a number of pastors have read it, and they said this is a required reading for pastors. Why? Because I take apart the book of Genesis. You remember Chuck Missler? Mm-hmm. Chuck Missler style. I take apart the book of Genesis and I say, look at all these evil things that God is warning us about, and it's what Islam idolizes. All these bad things, including sacrificing children, killing Jews, killing Christians, killing any human beings. All of these things are very crazy, that their God is the devil. Allah is the devil. And the problem is Jewish people, why do they support Islam over Christianity? Because the great lie is that we pray to the same God. And I was raised in America, and I was taught there are 3 great monotheistic religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. That's a lie. There's one religion, and that's the Judeo-Christian God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And they said there are 3 great monotheistic books: the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Quran. That's a lie. There's one book, and it's called the Bible of the Jews and the Christians. And the Quran is a joke book written by a rabbi and a priest who were kidnapped. Nobody knows these things. I mean, the information is there. Nobody knows these things. And Jewish people are just so comfortable in ignorance and saying, well, we were in Spain 760 years with the Muslims, and it was just great. No, it wasn't great. And there were great pogroms and massacres of Jews under the Muslims as well. The Catholics were worse. But overall, look at the history and you see how the Protestant Reformation was a great thing, and every true Protestant who reads the Bible in his or her language must support Israel. But do Jews go to church on Sunday?
Oh, no.
No. And I get into trouble because I'm a Jew. I'm not a Christian, but I say to the Jews, you must go to church on Sunday. You must read the New Testament. Everybody says, oh, he's a Jew for Jesus. I said, I'm not a Jew for Jesus. When you read the New Testament, you see how close, it's a Jewish book, how close it is to Israel. When you go to church, you get to know these people and realize why they love us. But the Jewish people, now, why do they vote Mamdani? Because Jewish people have in their minds Russia, how the Jews were persecuted. Why did the Jews support the communist revolution? Because the Russian Orthodox Church was in charge of the nationalism. In Germany, the Lutheran Church was in charge of the nationalism. There was no room for Jews. And so as a result, Jewish people came to America and said, well, America, I think the church steeple, they're the same bad people like we saw in Russia and Germany and France and Poland and other countries, which is not true. And you cannot get over the hatred of the Christians until you get over the hatred of the Protestants, because the Protestant Reformation was a great thing for the Jewish people. But, you know, we're ignorant. And all I can say is, praise God, I've been in 1,000 churches, and I've been in 1,000 radio and TV programs, 35 years. And I wish all Jews could do what I'm doing, because then they would say, wow, Avi was right. And after 35 years, they say, you know what, Avi was right.
Okay, so a couple of things here. When's your book coming out? Do you have a title yet?
Yes, my first book is actually a revised and updated and expanded edition of the Israel Bible Block Party, because when I wrote it in 2006, it was just a dream. The book was registered, the party was registered with the Israeli Knesset May 15th, 2018, and we're having elections within a year probably, and this book is the up-to-date book on the Bible Block Party. We ran in 5 elections, and we have candidates who are from Ethiopia, from Russia, from the United States, and I'm going to get this guy into the Knesset, and got to just get your Hebrew up to par.
Exactly.
And I have Jewish people, Orthodox Jews, who are with me also. My wife and my sons are with me. We are also expecting, we need an hour for this, a Holocaust in America, because of the tens of millions of Muslims who have come into America legally with student visas and all this bribery going on. So you have maybe 6 million Jews married to 4 million Christians. They're all going to have to come to Israel.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that in a second too.
Yeah.
So
my party will be the biggest party in the Knesset.
Okay, and with the book, you said that all pastors need to read.
That is book number 5. It's called Islam Prophesied in Genesis.
Okay, I got to get that book. Remember that one. We'll have it.
I have it in the car.
I'm going to take it home with me.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also, my 9th book is Lepanto 2, Turkey and the Armageddon, because nobody talks about Lepanto. Nobody knows what Lepanto is.
I like that one too.
Yeah.
My suitcase is going to be too heavy going home. With that, are Jews waking up to the reality that there are certain Christians that are different than the rest? Because still, even within Protestantism, there is a growing anti-Semitism. However, there's people like myself that wait a minute, we believe the Bible is true.
Right. From
Genesis all the way through to the end. Right. Therefore, God's covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is everlasting.
Amen.
So we support Israel. But that is it's a smaller percentage of those who go to church now. And are you finding that Jews do understand there are people like us that support them?
Well, when I started speaking in churches 35 years ago, I don't want to say I was pretty much alone. But nowadays, there are dozens and dozens of Israeli rabbis and speakers going to speak in churches, which I think is a great thing happening. But like I said before, firstly, in America, 50% of the Jews are unaffiliated. They don't go to synagogue. Intermarriage with Christians is 80%. So if you got 6 million Jews, you got 4 million Christians who are part of the Judeo-Christian nuclear family. When the time comes to kill the Jews in America, which is what the Muslims are planning for, if a Christian woman marries a Goldstein, her name is Goldstein. Got to kill her too. So you know, like it's with the Nazis. When a Christian or non-Jew would marry a Jew, they would have to pull a lot of strings to get out of that.
Well, even any Christian that was supporting the Jews.
Exactly. And even 1/4 of your family, grandparents, it's enough to go to the gas chambers. But actually, I want to say something very tough. When you ask me, are the Jews learning? We had a leader, Jabotinsky, in 1920, who warned the Jewish people in Europe, and he said, liquidate the diaspora, or the diaspora will liquidate you. There were 2 assassination attempts on Jabotinsky from the ultra-Orthodox, because they did not want to leave Europe. They would not listen. And Hitler cleaned the slate. 6 million Jews died because the Jewish leadership was interested in its own private interests. In America, it's exactly the same. But on the other hand, you have 500,000 Jews who don't know and don't care, don't go to synagogue.
They don't care. There's an apathy among
and the Reform and the Conservative still see the Christians as the enemy. Orthodox also, but the Orthodox already are with their suitcases ready to come to Israel. So you're talking basically about anywhere between 500,000 to 1 million Jews who are ready to leave America and go to Israel. But I'm saying, I'm expecting 10 million people to come. And in addition, there are many, many different groups, Messianic groups, there are Hispanic groups that claim Jewish descendancy. They all want to come to Israel. I expect an immigration of 10 to 20 million, in addition to the 10 million that are here. So if my wife doesn't kill me, I'm the prime minister.
Okay.
But we've got to have governmental changes within the ministries before we can get the Jews who've married into the Christian or the Messianic world, or they became Messianic believers. For me, I was as secular and wild and crazy, sex, drugs, and rock and roll when I was making Aliyah, and that was fine. You can make Aliyah not believing in God whatsoever. But if you say that you follow a different rabbi, such as Yeshua, then there's no way they're going to let him in. What's it going to take? You got a good joke for me? What's it going to take?
It's not a joke, it's something very serious.
What's it going to take to get the ministries to begin the switch and the change to understand?
A lot of blood.
That's what I'm afraid of.
In World War II, 6 million Jews died, 1 million survived Europe. That's what most of them came to Israel. Some didn't, some stayed in Europe. We have a problem. And America, I love America. I'm praying for America, but I'll never forget when I was a young kid going to Hebrew school, and we were told there's going to be a Holocaust in America from the American Christians. And it's not true. It's not the American Christians, it's the Muslims and the Antifa and the Black Lives Matter. I can tell you things, hair-raising things about things that certain black people in America said to me. They're coming after the Jews, and they have the guns, they have the weapons, Islam supports them. And because the Jews still support Mamdani and the ultra-left, you have now right-wing patriots who are going against the Jews in the churches.
I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Because to me, that is a much bigger problem. You know, we already, as an American, I get what the left is about. They're easy to identify. They're, in a sense, they're easy to write off because you go, okay, that's just nuts. But what's happened now with the right is very concerning to me because they're the ones that are in the churches. They're the ones that are influencing pastors, and the pastors are influencing their people. They're the ones that are influencing MAGA movement. And to me, it's a much bigger problem because you can keep the left where it is, but now that you have Marjorie Taylor Greene and all these other people on the right that are raising their head against Israel and against the Jews, now you have a combined force.
You know, I have to tell you something. I had lunch with a neo-Nazi in Florida at the Villages. And I didn't know he was a neo-Nazi. And a lady friend said, you have a groupie who was following you. He was following me. We had like a 2-hour lunch. It was so friendly, and he's so intellectual, he's so smart, and he's a good Christian. I mean, like you said, he goes to church. And after all this philosophy and stuff, he said, do you remember the black guy who with the police knee on his George Floyd. What do you think about the killing of George Floyd? And I said, well, you know, he was on drugs. He should have been in a hospital or in jail or I don't know what. But to kill him like they did, I mean, you know, he was half dead anyway. So then he says, what do you think about defund the police? And I said, well, I think it's terrible because defund the police, you will have murder and chaos and civil war and everything. And he goes like this. I said, why do you say no? He says, well, because before the killing of George Floyd, we had 3 million militia members. Now we have 30 million militia members because of defund the police. And the first thing we're going to do is kill all the Jews in America.
Wow.
And
so what they're, okay, so let me get this. What they're saying is, look, the police are not going to bring law and order, so we're going to bring law and order, and there's a lot more of them.
And the Jews are against us.
And the Jews are against us, so we're...
And you sat there and had lunch with him, and he said these words to you.
And then I got up, I said, you'll excuse me, I cannot sit with you. I got up and I left, and I reported him to the president of Israel, Yitzhak Herzog. And a few weeks later, before my next trip to the States, there was an announcement on Israeli radio that the Israeli government has an emergency plan for the absorption of 500,000 Jews from America. Wow. So somebody was listening, but what's 500,000 Jews? You have 6 million Jews and 4 million Christians married to us, and the children of these intermarriages, what, you're going to leave them there? They have to come to Israel too. So the rabbis now are threatening me because we don't want the Christians here.
Wow.
But the Christians are going to come to Israel, and we're going to get, forgive me for saying it, God is going to give all of us a giant enema of Jews and Christians who the rabbis here don't like.
So this is, okay, so then you have the problem with Judea and Samaria, and is Israel going to be able to exercise their sovereignty over Judea and Samaria and absorb these people that would come?
Okay, now, many people say I'm crazy. And I am crazy in a way.
Roddey told me that.
Yeah, and I'm crazy, but you know what? God is crazy. Because you read the Bible, and God says we're going to go from the Nile to the Euphrates. Egypt is preparing for war with us. Turkey is preparing for war from us. We're going to go from the Nile to the Euphrates. And I think it was Steve Bannon who said that there should be a Christian Jerusalem. And I said, well, I agree with the Christian Jerusalem in Lebanon.
I think Steve Bannon's understanding of that's completely different from mine, but that's another story.
Well, you know, I'm thinking like this. The rabbis are right that Israel is the one and only Jewish state which must not be taken over by Christianity. But if we create, after all these wars and after all the expansion in our territory, the United States of Israel, where Lebanon becomes a Christian state under Israel's aegis, and Syria becomes a Christian state under Israel's aegis. We take care of the Druze. We take care of an alliance with the Kurds at the Euphrates. We are there. We are already at the Euphrates. Yemen is part of the promise of God to Israel. Saudi Arabia. All of these things will happen, but we need tens of millions of Christian immigrants because there simply are no Jews.
Well, I would just throw this out as a caution because of me being a pastor in America for a few decades now, right? And
until you moved to Israel.
Well, my observation is that within the church,
it is the I'll go to your church.
Okay, yeah. There we go. I just see this growing problem with those who label themselves as Christian. So, if you have all these so-called Christians that are part of the greater Israel, or whatever you want to call it, I'm concerned who are these that call themselves Christians because of things we've already talked about.
Right.
To me, I'm much more cautious now than I was 5 years ago in who I do ministry with as a Christian.
Right.
Christian to Christian, pastor to pastor. There are certain people that I talk with now that we have formed a tighter alliance because we've realized we're a minority
in the Christian world.
In the Christian world.
Correct.
And so
it's called the remnant.
Well, that's exactly what we call ourselves, the remnant. And as I see what's happening within those who call themselves Christian, I'd be concerned about, I'd be concerned about those who come in the name of Christianity, but they aren't really thinking. They don't think the Bible. I mean, most churches won't teach the Old Testament.
Right.
They don't teach half of the New Testament because it even offends them because there's too much Israel in the New Testament.
Right.
So they cut out the passages where it's anything pro-Israel.
Right. By the way, allow me to interrupt. My first book is Fanatic Islam, A Global Threat, was translated into German by a German Christian Zionist publisher, Hensler Verlag. Friedrich Hensler, before he was kidnapped by the German army, put on the Russian front, he had a printing company. They were printing Psalms. And the Nazis shut him down because they said you have to erase any mention of Israel in the Psalms. You have to erase any mention of Israel in the prayer books. And he said no, and they shut him down. Anyway, then they forced him into the German army. They sent him to the Ukraine. And a 16-year-old kid. And they gave him a gun, and one day they said, go shooting in the forest. They, took him shooting. He thought they were shooting deer or bear or I don't know what for food. And he saw naked women and children being shot, the Jewish people in the Ukraine. And he looked up to the sky. He said, Jesus Christ, if you are really there, please don't let me kill the Jews. And the commander of the firing squad, Hensler out of the firing squad, Hensler never killed one Jew in World War II. And so I was very convinced then that I must do my book with Hensler.
Wow.
A very, very interesting story. But there is this problem that anti-Semites hate God, anti-Semites hate Israel and the Jews, anti-Semites hate the Bible. So listen, we are a remnant, we Jews and Christians who love each other.
We should look back into history. You're a historian. We try to study the history. We've seen these divisions within the believing world since 1 year after Yeshua defeats death. And so we should learn these divisions, what caused them, what could they have done at that point in time, whether we're talking about the Crusaders or some of the hardcore older church fathers who went against Israel and the Jewish people. We should learn these things and study them and see what they did wrong and how to combat it. That's going to be coming again. It's not coming. It's happening right now for the division within the believing world, the Christian world.
By the way, we have to remember in the book of Romans, I'm a Jew quoting the book of Romans, the Jews are the original olive tree and the Christians are the branches that are grafted in. So if you take out the Old Testament, you're cutting off the roots of Christianity. Yeah.
I mean, Paul deals with this problem. So you have Romans chapter 9, 10, and 11, where Paul is addressing this whole issue of replacement theology. It's almost like in the Old Testament, you look at the words of Jeremiah chapter 31 and chapter 33. If you can change the ordinances that I have with the sun, the moon, and the stars, then maybe, just maybe, then I'll forget my covenant that I have with Jacob. God says, it ain't going to happen. And Paul seems to be building on that in Romans chapter 11. He says, certainly not. That's absurd. The gifts and callings of the Lord are irrevocable. And here's a problem within the church. Churches take that verse totally out of context from Romans chapter 11, say it applies to the gifts of the Holy Spirit.
Right.
It does not. It is the context of it is about the people of Israel only. That's the whole context. That God is going to, he's not done with his people, Israel. Blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come. Then Israel will be saved, and his gifts and callings are irrevocable. And it's all in the same passage of the olive tree,
right,
and the olive branch.
And our stained glasses that we talk about every day.
What's that? Well,
Romans 9, 10, and 11 are the two stained glasses. It's the olive tree, the menorah, and on the left-hand side, it has a cross with the nations being grafted in. At the bottom, the roots of the olive tree. If they're cut off in Hebrew, his gifts and promises are irrevocable, is in there. They did the Hebrew a little wrong, but this is something we talk about here at this location every day because this brings everyone together. It's uniting people. It's the one God, the one Messiah in the house of Israel for all people. And whether you believe he's come yet or he's to come, it's still the God of Israel, the Messiah of Israel in the house of Israel.
So we have about 4 minutes left. What would be a couple of closing thoughts from either of you?
We are living in the most remarkable time in the last 2,000 years. The last 2 years show how we did not want to go into Gaza. They had this sneak attack on the 7th of October. They murdered us, they raped us, they took our babies, chopped them up, and cooked them in microwaves. Barbarians. That forced us to do something we would never thought of doing, which was to go in and finish off Hamas in Gaza. A day after the October 7th attack, Hezbollah in Lebanon started shelling us. We didn't want to go into Lebanon. We were afraid of them putting up a tent on our border. We took out Hezbollah. Remember, Jeepers, Peepers, where did you get those Jeepers? Beepers, Iran. We were afraid of Iran launching nuclear weapons. They still are seeking that capability. They have given Yemen multi-warhead missiles, which they can put nuclear also. So Iran has to be taken out so that Yemen cannot do that to us. Now they have gone across the water to not to Ethiopia, to Sudan. There's a Holocaust going on there, and they're going to attack. There's an agreement to launch drones at Israel from Sudan.
So this is Ezekiel chapter 38. You have, I know you know this from Missler,
right.
Your time with him, is you have Russia, Iran, and Turkey from the north. You have Sudan, and Sudan from the south, and I believe it's Libya also. So as we watch what's taking place within the Sudan, for those who are looking at the Old Testament, we can say, wait a minute, everything is continuing this direction.
Exactly. And what I'm trying to say, there's an American slang, Jews and Christians, either we hang together or we hang separately. And so my work for 35 years has been Judeo-Christian, Western civilization, and democracy and alliance. And anybody who hates the Christians, who's Jewish, is a Nazi. And everybody who hates the Jews is a Nazi. Jews and Christians are one people. You cannot hate Jews. You cannot hate Christians. We have a common root. We have a common destiny. And it's also one of the reasons for my Bible Block party. It can't be in the Knesset. We have 40 parties, and there are no Christian candidates. So I'm going, God willing, with God's help, with your help, I'm going to get Christians into the Knesset.
Roddey, you got about a minute left.
It won't take that long. So what do we have sitting here? We have an American Christian pastor. We have an Israeli-American Messianic Jew, who is also a nationalistic Jew, a nationalistic religious Jew, sitting here having a conversation for an hour, and we all seem to be agreeing on the same things. God of Israel, Messiah of Israel, House of Israel, for all who choose to be under the aegrises of Israel.
As we're talking about all of this, I know there's only one possible solution to fix all this mess.
Amen.
And it's the Messiah. And this is the only difference.
Wait, is he coming or returning only for the Southern Baptists?
Yeah, I don't know any Southern. No, I got to be careful what I say about Southern Baptists.
Yeah, I love Southern Baptists. He's coming for all the Jews and Christians who will receive him.
Who will receive him.
Amen.
Amen.
And that's why the borders from the Nile to the Euphrates and from Lebanon to Yemen, this is going to be the empire as God has drawn the map for us.
Absolutely. I think of that map when God gave the tribes of Jacob. Israel has never fulfilled all of that, has never occupied.
It's gonna happen in our time.
That would be marvelous. I believe so too. Thank you everybody for joining us, and looking forward to seeing you next time. God bless.
Thanks, Tom.